What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into another college basketball bracketology update. Today, we're going to be looking at the latest bracketology from ESPN's Joe Lunardi, and this will be my final bracketology update as we are just days away from finding out who's going to be in the field of 68 on Selection Sunday. So let's go ahead and waste no time. Let's get into the latest bracketology update. Starting with who's on the bracket watch. Still, the top overall seed is Auburn, and Auburn will be getting underway here in just a few moments in the SEC tournament against the number 8 seed in the tournament of Ole Miss. So we'll see if Auburn can bounce back after suffering back-to-back losses to end the regular season. First team out is Indiana, and Indiana can't really do too much to solidify themselves into the tournament as they lost to Oregon yesterday. So Indiana's run in the Big Ten tournament is over. And the last team in is Texas, and Texas definitely got a big victory against Texas A&M. They'll have a big opportunity today against Tennessee. So right now, at the moment, Texas is safely into the field. And if that were the case, that would be 14 projected teams out of the Southeastern Conference. So that's the bracket watch. Now let's move on to what teams are on the bubble. So let's go ahead and knock out the last four byes. So you have Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Utah State, and West Virginia. So Arkansas, Vanderbilt, and West Virginia are already out of their conference tournament. Utah State has a big opportunity tonight against Colorado State. So we'll see if the Aggies can pick up a big win to really solidify themselves, because a win over Colorado State, they won't even have to sweat on Selection Sunday. The last four in are San Diego State, Xavier, North Carolina, and Texas. So San Diego State and Xavier's run in their conference tournaments are over. North Carolina has a big opportunity today as they face off against the number 1 seed in the ACC tournament in Duke. Texas, like I mentioned, has a big opportunity as well to face off against Tennessee. Your first four out are Indiana, Ohio State, Boise State, and Colorado State. Boise State and Colorado State will be playing in their semifinal games today. Indiana and Ohio State are out of the Big Ten tournament. And now the next four out, Dayton, UC Irvine, Wake Forest, and Villanova. With Wake Forest and Villanova's season ending, I don't really see a scenario for the Demon Deacons in Villanova to get in. UC Irvine is still alive in the Big Sky tournament, and Dayton will be getting underway in the 18 tournament pretty soon. So now let's move on to what teams are going to be involved, projected in this first four in. So you have a 16-seed matchup with SIU Edwardsville. They already clinched their conference tournament. Jackson State is now the projected winner out of the SWAC since number 1 seed and the projected favorite Southern lost to Grambling in overtime. So Jackson State looks like it's the projected winner of the SWAC. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. The 11 seed matchup will be between San Diego State and North Carolina. So North Carolina has moved themselves into the field. And the 12 seed matchup would feature an exciting one between Xavier and Texas. So Texas, the Longhorns, are now a new team to the bracket. And then the last one would be two 16-seed matchups. These two teams have already locked up their spot in the big dance with American and St. Francis. So now let's move on to the South region, where you see number 1 seed Auburn. Yeah, it looks like the only change here is North Carolina is now in the field as the 11th seed. And like I mentioned, they'd be facing off against San Diego State. In the East, you have BYU moving up to a 5 seed after a big win against Iowa State. They'll definitely have an opportunity today against Houston. Oklahoma moves up to a 10 seed. Oklahoma really missed out on a big chance of beating Kentucky last night, but Otega Owe had other thoughts about that. But Oklahoma, even with a win in the first round against Georgia, looks like Oklahoma is safely in the field as a 10 seed. In the West, Texas is new to the field. St. Mary's is down to a 7 seed after suffering a loss in the West Coast Conference Championship against Gonzaga, so they're down to a 7. Only changes in the Midwest are Ole Miss is up to a 5 seed after the recent victory over Arkansas yesterday. West Virginia down to 11 seed after they went one and done and lost to the number 16 seed in the Big 12 tournament in Colorado. And UNC Wilmington is down to a number 14 seed. Looking at the conference breakdown for now, the SEC has 13 teams. Big 10 has 9. Big 12 is 8. Big East has 5. ACC has 4. Mountain West has 3. And West Coast Conference has 2. So now, as we always do here, let's go on to our bracket predictions. We use Joe Lunardi's Bracketology. We put it in on pdffiller.com, and we will be making our predictions from the first round all the way to the national championships. Let's go ahead and knock this out. Starting with the South region with the number 1 overall team in this projected field is Auburn. They would be facing off against the 16 seed winner of SIU, Edwardsville, and Jackson State. I would have Jackson State winning that matchup, but Auburn would just be too much for whoever comes out of that playing game. Now we have a great matchup with number 8 seed Marquette and number 9 seed Baylor. Baylor really played well in the second half against Texas Tech, but Texas Tech was able to hold on. And Marquette got a big one yesterday against Xavier. Xavier is one of those teams that we just looked at as in the bubble. So both of these teams really have a lot of talent, but I am going to go with the number 8 seed in Marquette. Moving on there, so no upset so far. So now let's move on to the 5 and the 12, Oregon and UC San Diego. UC San Diego, definitely one of those teams to watch out of the Big West, but Oregon, one of the hottest teams in all of college basketball. They have now won 8 straight, so give me the Ducks. Now we move on to number 4 seed Clemson and number 13 Akron. I really like Akron as a 13 seed, but not here against an experienced Clemson team that I think that can make another deep run. So let's go to Clemson. Now we have a 6 and 11 with number 6 seed Kansas facing off against the winner of San Diego State, North Carolina. Give me North Carolina to beat the Aztecs, and give me North Carolina as an upset here. So we have the Tar Heels advancing on to the second round of this tournament. And now we have number 3 seed Texas A&M facing off against the number 14 seed Utah Valley. I will have Texas A&M moving on. So it looks like Texas A&M, even with the loss to Texas, they are solidly projected as a number 3 seed. Now let's go on to the 7 and 10 with Missouri and Utah State. Would be another phenomenal first-round game, but I am going to go with Missouri in this SEC versus Mountain West showdown. Now in the 2 and the 15, we have Michigan State and number 15 seed Bryant. Don't really see Michigan State struggling here in the first round, so give me Michigan State. Now let's move on to the second-round matchups. In the South, we have number 1 seed Auburn and number 8 seed Marquette. I mean, Cam Jones would have to go nuclear for this to even be close, but I am going to go with Auburn to move on there. So we have the Tigers moving on. And number 5 seed Oregon, number 4 seed Clemson would definitely be a fantastic 5-4 game if we got it. But I am going to go with Clemson. So we have both Clemson and Auburn moving on to the Sweet 16. Then we have North Carolina, the 11 seed, facing off against number 3 Texas A&M. And I have a play-in team going from the first 4 in to the Sweet 16. So give me an upset here with 11 seed North Carolina Tar Heels. They advance on to the Sweet 16. Then we have a great matchup here, number 7 seed Missouri and number 2 seed Michigan State. I will have the Spartans moving on there, so give me Michigan State. Now our Sweet 16 is set with number 1 seed Auburn and number 4 seed Clemson. I think that Clemson is one of the few teams that could really give Auburn some trouble, but ultimately I will have Auburn advancing on there. So we have the number 1 overall seed going to the Elite 8. Now we have North Carolina, the 11 seed, facing off against number 2 seed Michigan State. We saw this same matchup at last year's tournament. Michigan State got the job done in the 8 versus 1 upset. I think that Michigan State does the same this time as the favorite, so give me Michigan State. Then we have number 1 seed Auburn, number 2 seed Michigan State. I will be having Michigan State moving on to the Final Four as the number 1 overall seed goes down here in the Elite 8. So now let's move on to the East, where we see number 1 seed Duke. They be facing off against American in St. Francis. Give me American in that matchup, but no number 1 seed going down here against the 16 seed. Then we have Mississippi State and Creighton. Give me a slight 9 over upset here. I'm going to go with Creighton over Mississippi State there. Would be a fantastic 8-9 game. 5 seed BYU and number 12 seed Liberty. How can you really pick against this BYU team the way that they've been playing? So give me BYU. Then we have number 4 seed Maryland, number 13 seed High Point. Don't see an upset here. Give me Maryland. So we have another Big Ten team advancing on to the second round. Then we have number 6 seed Michigan and 11 seed VCU. I will be pulling off another 11 over 6 upset. Just don't really have any faith with Michigan. They just haven't been playing well down the stretch. So give me the Rams out of the A-10. Then we have Iowa State versus Troy. Troy, one of those teams to really watch out for in the Sun Belt. But Iowa State marches on to the second round. And then we have Gonzaga and Oklahoma would be another great game. But I am going to go with Gonzaga here. This would be, like I mentioned, a great game, but I just have Gonzaga moving on to the second round. Then we have number 10 seed Tennessee, number 15 seed Robert Morris. I will be going with the chalk here, go with Tennessee to defeat Robert Morris. Now let's move on to the second round matchups in the East. Number 1 seed Duke facing off against number 9 seed Creighton. Creighton would definitely give them a whale of a game, but I am going to go with Duke to move on here. Then we have number 5 seed BYU and number 4 seed Maryland. This would be, I mean, man, look at the 5-4 games that are projected. We have Oregon and Clemson and BYU and Maryland. And give me another slight upset here with BYU taking down the Terps in the second round. Then we have VCU, the 11 seed, and 3 seed Iowa State. I have Iowa State, the Cyclones, moving on there. And then we had number 7 seed Gonzaga, number 2 seed Tennessee. Gonzaga, this would be a low-scoring game. Both teams just love to get after it on the defensive side of the ball, but I am going to go with Tennessee moving on. Now we have number 1 seed Duke facing off against number 5 seed BYU. This would be a tough matchup for Duke, considering how hot BYU has been, but I think that Duke will survive yet another round. Now we have Iowa State and Tennessee. I'm going to continue to roll with a slight upset here, go with Iowa State, the Cyclones. I know that this has been a team that's been dealing with a lot of injuries, but even dealing with the injuries, this team has been really playing well, even in the loss recently to BYU. And then we have Duke and Iowa State. I'm going to go with the Blue Devils. They go on all the way to the Final Four. So we have Michigan State and Duke, 2 Blue Bloods, already in the Final Four. So now let's move on to the West region where we have the number 1 seed, the Florida Gators. They would be facing off against Norfolk State. Don't see another 1 in 16 upset, so give me Florida. Number 8 seed UConn facing off against number 9 seed New Mexico. I will go with UConn, Connecticut, starting to really find their identity down the stretch here. So watch out for UConn. Whoever gets them is going to be one heck of a draw for that team. So now we have number 5 seed Arizona facing off against number 12 seed Xavier in Texas. I will go with Trey Johnson in Texas. And you know what? Give me Texas to pull off the upset here over Arizona. So give me the Longhorns. So we have another play-in team pulling off an upset. Now let's go to number 4 seed Wisconsin and number 13 seed Lipscomb. I will be going with the Badgers over Lipscomb, though Lipscomb is one of those 13 teams to watch out for. They could definitely make a run. Now we have number 6 seed UCLA and number 11 seed Drake. Let's go with another upset. Go with the Drake Bulldogs, pulling off this 11-6 upset over the Bruins of UCLA. Now we have Kentucky and Montana. I have Kentucky moving on past Montana here in this first round matchup. Then we had number 7 seed St. Mary's and Vanderbilt. I will be going with the Gales of St. Mary's. They continue on their run here in this tournament. So give me St. Mary's. Then we have Texas Tech, the 2 seed and 15 seed Omaha. I will go with the Red Raiders of Texas Tech. And then we have a showdown here between number 1 seed Florida and number 8 seed UConn. This would be a great game. Thought about pulling this off, but I will go with Florida. This is definitely a deep Florida team that I think that if they get a good enough draw, they can make it all the way to the national championship game. Then we have number 12 seed Texas and number 4 seed Wisconsin. Do we have another double-digit seed? Moving on, let's go with Trey Johnson in Texas to pull off this upset. So we have Texas, the 12 seed, going on a little bit of a run here. So we have Florida and Texas in the Sweet 16 so far. Then we have number 11 seed Drake and number 3 seed Kentucky. I will go with Kentucky moving on there. So far, 3 SEC teams here in the Sweet 16. Then we have St. Mary's versus Texas Tech. I will go with Texas Tech in this matchup. And then we have number 1 seed Florida versus number 12 seed Texas. And I will go with Florida in this SEC showdown. And now we have number 3 seed Kentucky versus number 2 seed Texas Tech. I will be going with Texas Tech in this one. This will be a high-score matchup between Texas Tech and Kentucky, but I will give the nod to the Red Raiders. And now we have Florida versus Texas Tech, and I will be going with Texas Tech again in this 2-1 upset here. So give me the Red Raiders there. They are definitely a loaded team. As long as they can stay healthy and Chance McMillan can play like Chance McMillan, this team could really be special in this tournament. So give me Texas Tech. Now let's move on to the final one, which features number 1 seed Houston versus number 16 seed Quinnipiac. I will go with Houston moving on there. And then we have Memphis and Georgia, a great 8-9 matchup, but I will go with Penny Hardaway in Memphis to move on there. PJ Haggerty, definitely a point guard that could really make this team special here in this tournament. Then we have 5 seed Ole Miss and number 12 seed McNeese. This is a tough matchup for McNeese, so I will be going with Ole Miss in the 5 and the 12 upset. Not really an upset here. This is Ole Miss. Moving on there, and then we have number 4 seed Purdue and number 13 seed Yale. Let's go ahead and have Yale out of the Ivy League pulling off this 13-4 upset. So that's our first 13-4 of this tournament. Then we have number 6 seed Illinois and number 11 seed West Virginia. Let's have Illinois continuing on their run there. So we have the Fighting Illini moving on to the second round. Now we have St. John's and UNC Wilmington in the 3 and the 14. I will have the Johnnies continuing on their run here in March Madness. And then we have number 7 seed Louisville and number 10 seed Arkansas. I will be going with Louisville out of the ACC. And then we have number 2 seed Alabama versus number 15 seed in Wofford. I will be going with the Crimson Tide there. So we have Alabama moving on. And then we have another really good matchup here with number 1 seed Houston and number 8 seed Memphis, an old American Conference Championship rivalry game. But let's go with a big upset here. Go with the number 8 seed Memphis taking down the number 1 seed Houston. I mean, I just think that not all number 1 seeds are going to survive all the way to the Sweet 16. So give me Memphis to pull off the big upset there. Then we have number 5 seed Ole Miss and number 13 Yale. Yale's Cinderella story will end here as I have the Rebels moving on to the Sweet 16. Then we have number 6 seed Illinois and number 3 seed St. John's. Two teams that have been playing really well down the stretch. And I am going to go with the upset, go with Illinois in the 6 and the 3 over St. John's. So far, craziness happening here in the Midwest. Now we have number 2 seed Alabama, number 7 seed Louisville. I will go with the Crimson Tide to continue their run there. Then we have number 8 seed Memphis and number 5 seed Ole Miss. Continue the Cinderella story. Give me the 8 seed of Memphis moving on all the way to the Elite 8. And now we have a matchup of Illinois and Alabama. And I will be going with Alabama in this matchup against Illinois. So now we have Memphis and Alabama. Do we have a high seed moving on to the Final Four? No, we do not. We have Alabama making a trip back to the Final Four. So we have 2 seeds, actually 3 2 seeds with Michigan State, Texas Tech, and Alabama all making it to the Final Four, along with the number 1 seed, the Duke Blue Devils. So let's get to our first matchup, Michigan State and Texas Tech. Give me Michigan State to move on to the national championship, where they'll be facing off against the winner of Duke and Alabama, and give me Duke, the Blue Devils, to move on there. So we have Michigan State and Duke, and I will have the Duke Blue Devils cutting down the nets in San Antonio. So let me know who you have making it to the Final Four, and ultimately who do you have winning the national championship in this 2024-2025 college basketball season. Like I mentioned, that is it for our bracketology updates. Now it is up to the committee of who will be in the field of 68. So I appreciate everybody for tuning into today's video, and I will catch you next time. So long for now.